What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another movie review. I'm Chase Lee, reviewing for DallasMovieScreenings.com, and the movie I want to take a look at right now is Zombieland Double Tap. Now, this one comes from Sony Pictures. It is directed by Ruben Fleischer, and this one is the sequel to the 2009 hit film Zombieland. And in the first Zombieland, you had all four of these characters in different states. They are running away from the zombies. They eventually come together. They're all strangers at this point, and they become friends, become this family, this unit, and then they eventually go fight zombies as a family, and they end up liking each other, even though their personalities are vastly different. They find a way to connect in some way, shape, or form. Jesse Eisenberg, Emma Stone, Woody Harrelson, and Abigail Breslin play these characters, and they go by the states that they lived in, not their actual names. So Columbus, Tallahassee, Wichita, and Little Rock. So we got all four of these actors back, and it's awesome because it's 10 years later, and that rarely happens for any sequel. But we follow these characters 10 years later. Jesse Eisenberg and Emma Stone are more of an item now, more affectionate. Their love is kind of growing from the first one. Abigail Breslin's character is getting older. She feels like she doesn't fit in with this family anymore, and she wants to go hang out with people her own age, which is kind of hard when you don't know if there's more people out there your own age. Woody Harrelson's character is he's lonely. He wants to find a companion, and he's also being a fatherly figure towards Abigail Breslin, but she doesn't really want that, so she's being kind of pushed out that way. So that is the sequel. That is where we kind of pick up on these characters, and they are fighting zombies and enhanced zombies as well. I'll get to that in just a second, but. Yeah, so my history with this franchise goes as follows. I love the first one. I think it's a great horror comedy. It's a brisk movie. It goes in and out. I think it's like 80 minutes. It's a pretty short movie, but it's really entertaining to watch these characters in these situations. Like I said, their personalities are different, but they can still bounce off with chemistry pretty well. And you would never expect these actors and actresses to get together in the same movie, but it works. So, it's just it's one of those horror comedies that I try to pop in at least once a year, especially around Halloween season. So I was looking forward to the sequel. The trailers were okay, but I was hoping that maybe the studio was kind of holding back on some of the better jokes that were going to play out in the theater. So I had that hope for it. So I saw Zombieland Double Tap, and I like it. It's a good movie. I have some problems with it, but I think as a continuation from the first one, if you like the first one or even love the first one, I think you'll like this installment. It's a pretty great companion piece. So to start off with Ruben Fleischer, director, because he was also the director of the first one. He directs this sequel with such ease, as if like the first one came out 1 or 2 years ago and not 10 years ago, which blows my mind. The energy is there. The hyperactive violence is there. The chemistry between the characters is there. The charm, the quirkiness, just everything about the first one and what made it stand out amongst everything else that came out that year and why everyone continues to watch it. He just applies that same tone and that same effort into the sequel, and it shows, the editing is swift. The violence is gory. It's got great special effects and practical effects. The graphics are they're loud. They're animated. They're just fun to watch, and it just adds that extra level of energy to this movie, and that's what makes it stand out. And Ruben Fleischer applies that. He creates that tone, and he continues it from 1 to 2, and it's flawless. And I really dug that. He made another entertaining movie. Paul Wernick and Rhett Reese, the writers, and Dave Callum, I believe that's how you pronounce his name. He also wrote this, but I'm mainly going to concentrate on Wernick and Reese because they wrote the first ones. So the writing in this movie is where I'm going to have some issues with it. So to start out with some of the positives, what I really respect about Reese and Wernick is I've heard them in interviews, and they have established that they will only write a sequel if it's got a good story. So with something like this, if you do the same thing as the first one, they're going to bounce from house to house and just kill a bunch of zombies in cool ways. Yeah, that's cool for 10 minutes. how are you going to pad out the other 70 or so minutes? That's a lot of time. And so they took it upon themselves to advance these characters as they've gotten older with age and made their characters more mature. So, they expanded upon the romantic relationship that Stone and Eisenberg have. Abigail Breslin grew up in real life, so they played around with the fact that she's getting older in the movie and she needs to go hang out with people her own age, and she doesn't really know where to fit in. And Woody Harrelson is getting older, and they're finding that his character is getting lonely, and that makes total sense. So the character progressions in this film make total sense for the characters. So I like that attention to detail. That is what will make these movies, not seem, simplistic or boring, and they add a little bit of weight to it, which is great. The story itself is what I would expect from a sequel, not only with the character arcs that these people go through, but just them hopping around from location to location. It kind of makes sense with where the characters' mindsets are at and stuff. So once again, they applied a good story, and even is going as far as advancing the zombies. They have specific kinds now. Evolution has taken a foot of these zombies, and now there's like different types out there where they can decipher which ones are the slow ones and the dumb ones versus which ones are the fast ones and the ones that can actually dodge bullets. That's cool. That's world building. You want that when you expand a franchise and have more and more installments. That's all fine and dandy. And even the extra characters that they throw in are cheeky, they're fun. That's not the problem. The issue with this entire movie, and why I'm going to take the grade down just a hair, is the humor. Paul Wernick and Rhett Reese are what I would describe as really good studio writers, blockbuster studio writers. They've written the Deadpool movies, they wrote that Life movie, the Zombieland movies. Like, they know how to cater to a studio. That's not a problem, but let's call it what it is. They're really good at making studio pictures. You can love them, you can hate them. Either way, they know how to make movies for audiences, like vast audiences. Like, that's just what they do. It's not a problem. And with their movies in their past, I've laughed at them several times, and they have a good sense of humor. These guys get it. It depends on what type of movie, but with like the Deadpool movies, it's super meta and inside ballpark type of humor and raunchy at the same time. And this one kind of does the same thing, but it kind of depends. But with this one, there is that level of meta humor. It's breaking the fourth wall, which is interesting because I don't think the first one did that from what I remember. It's got the raunchy humor. It's got double entendres. It's got a lot of stuff. And they're throwing a bunch of stuff at this like joke dartboard and seeing what sticks. I got to tell you, the ratio split for me was like 70-30. 30% of the jokes in this movie hit very hard. They were swift. They came out of nowhere, hit me across the face, and I was like, that was a good joke. 70% of it felt like the actors were reciting stuff that was like recycled in old material. Now, to be fair, they do make references to the first one within this one, and they call each other out on it, like, oh, that's so 2009, all that stuff. So even like some of that humor, they make fun of themselves on. But other stuff surrounding it, there's a lot of jokes that do seem stale and flat and just doesn't have that same bite to it as the first one did. It almost, I don't want to say the L word and say lazy, but it's the type of humor that you could see coming from a mile away, and it doesn't have the same impact when you can kind of sit there and sense what they're going to say next and all that stuff. Like I said, some stuff caught me off guard, but when you're doing a horror comedy, I expect the comedy to hit just as hard as the horror. The horror in this movie is just like the movie. It's campy, it's over the top, and it's bloody. I expect the humor to be the same way, but if you're asking me personally, most of it did not hit. I still enjoyed myself as a horror film, but the comedy just wasn't there for me all the way. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. The performances are great. I mean, everyone slips back into the roles with such ease. Harrelson, Eisenberg, Stone, Breslin, all great. The newcomers are interesting. Luke Wilson and Thomas Middleditch, they're in the movie a little bit. They're in the trailers, but I'm not going to tell you how much they're in the movie. They're, once again, I throw the term cheeky out and fun out. They're just nice little characters that you can just laugh at because they have some funny moments. Zoe Deutsch, I think that's how you pronounce it. I think the T is silent and the E is like beauty, so douche. I don't know. Anyways, she's in this movie and she's really great. She plays a dumb person, and her Valley Girl accent, it's pretty nice. Like, you sit there and like she says some of the dumbest things, and you're like, I hope most of this is improv because she's really sharp with her timing here. So yeah, I thought Zoe was definitely a standout. So all the people there are saying like, oh, she steals the show. I wouldn't go that far, but she definitely stood out to me as someone with the comedic timing that you would want in this movie. Rosario Dawson is in this, and a bunch of other extras and stuff. Like, they're nice little additions. It's not anything to write home about. And yeah, that's about it. It's a little longer than the first one, but it doesn't matter. It still feels like a brisk little movie. The violence is over the top. It's what you want in a horror film. The characters there have that chemistry and that camaraderie back and forth. And I think if you see it with an audience, I think everyone can find something to laugh at. So I'm going to give Zombieland Double Tap a B-. If you were to ask me which one would I choose, I'd choose the first one. But this is still, like I said, a great companion piece to the first one. So, yeah. So, if you've seen Zombieland Double Tap, please let me know down below. And if you loved it, hated it, or whatever, just let me know all of that. That will do it for this review, guys. I'm Chase Lee, reviewing for DallasMovieScreenings.com. And tune in next time for whatever I review next. I will see you guys later.